on once again, and over to Europe's defining crisis. Whereas the Russia-Ukraine war continues to intensify, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that Ukraine's military is carrying out a counter-offensive operation near the Dobropillia and Pokrovsk in east, and it's aimed at thwarting Russian plans for further advances. Zelenskyy also announced that Ukrainian troops have reclaimed 7 settlements in the Donetsk region, emphasizing Ukraine's ongoing resilience on the front lines. He recently visited the region to assess the situation personally. Meanwhile, a Russian-guided bomb strike on the city of Counteroffensive has killed 5 people and left dozens more wounded, according to Ukrainian police. Rescue teams are working amid heavy damage to residential buildings and infrastructure. Now we are joined by our guest, Mohammed Osman. He is an international relations specialist, and he joins us live from the Egyptian capital of Cairo. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for joining us on this subject. Mohammed, given the heavy toll on both sides here, we have an estimated around the Russians have lost around 1 million troops, the Ukrainians close to that. How sustainable, if the war continues and how it is currently, are these Ukrainian counteroffensives in the long run?
Thank you for having me, Thomas. Greetings to you and to your audience. Well, of course, this, as we all know, the Russia-Ukraine war has turned since the spring of 2022 into a war of attrition, more or less. Now it is basically a battle of who has more manpower, who has more meat to dispense on the front line, and who has more ammunition and who has more military infrastructure. And of course, we all know, if we do the math, that this calculation or this calculus favors Russia decisively, and this has been demonstrated throughout the course of this war. Even though Ukraine has valiantly defended its territorial integrity at the initial phase of the war, and even carried out counteroffensives, recapturing significant parts of occupied Ukraine, especially in the Kharkiv and Kherson oblasts. However, of course, at this point, the Ukrainian steam train ran out of steam, and afterwards Russia called up some of its reservists and reconstituted its forces and regrouped and started establishing very stern defenses. So when it came to Ukraine actually launching a massive counteroffensive in the spring of 2023 and the summer of 2023, it ended in an absolute disaster, a decisive Ukrainian defeat. And since then, Russia has been advancing on the fronts, on all fronts, especially in the Donbass, where they have they now control the entirety of the Lugansk Oblast, and they control about 75 to 80% of Donetsk. And of course, we all know that this war started over those two restive regions, which have witnessed a substantial conflict between the predominantly ethnic Russian ethnic group in the Donetsk or Lugansk area and the Ukrainian government before Russia launched the all-out war against Ukraine, between the separatists and the government. So what's happening right now is President Zelenskyy claiming that this is a counteroffensive. Of course, this is not a counteroffensive. These are counterattacks, tactical attacks on the Dobropillia front, which was basically a dash by the Russian troops in this area in the vicinity of Pokrovsk to capture more areas before the Anchorage summit between Putin and Trump, so that Putin might enhance his negotiating position with the Americans. And it did serve that purpose, since the U.S. took nothing from the Russians so far. They have obtained no concessions, and the negotiations basically are in a state of complete paralysis. So right now, the Russians are steadily advancing on the Pokrovsk front and axis, according to independent military observers, unlike what Mr. Zelenskyy is claiming. And the Russians are also actively advancing in other parts of Donetsk, especially on the Seversk axis, and also in the Kharkiv axis. They are advancing in both Vovchansk and Kupiansk. So the Russians are basically attempting to enhance their battlefield position and maintain the military initiative on the ground, hoping that at some point, if they do come to sit down for negotiations, that Russia would continue to have the upper hand and dictate its conditions for a peace settlement in Ukraine in the future, but not the near future, as so it looks.
Yes, Mohammed, do stay with us. We have further updates. A senior Russian officer has said that Russian forces are advancing across all fronts in Ukraine, with the heaviest fighting around the logistics hub of the Pokrovsk in Donetsk. General Valery Demersimov, Russia's chief of staff, has claimed progress in the Donetsk, Zaporozhye and the Dnipropetrovsk, describing advances as practically in all directions. He noted Ukrainian troops are concentrating their best units in the Pokrovsk, allowing Russian gains elsewhere, including Kupiansk and Yampil. Let's listen in.
Наши войска в зоне специальной военной операции наступают практически на всех направлениях. При этом наиболее упорные бои развернулись на красноармейском направлении, где противник любыми способами, не считаясь потерянными, стремится остановить наше наступление и перехватить инициативу. Для этого командование ВСУ в район Красноармейска перебросил наиболее боеспособные и подготовленные подразделения в ущерб другим направлениям, на которых наше наступление развивается.
However, Russian gains have been limited. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said Ukraine successfully repelled the last 3 offensives, and troop reports near Kupiansk confirm Russian losses and captures. Okay, we have further updates from